My wife cheated, and her lover trained my kids to turn against me, so I cut them off, took all back, and what happened next no one saw coming. I returned home from my 18-month deployment in Afghanistan. I thought my kids would still love me. Watching those soldiers coming, home videos, was the only thing that got me through seeing all of my friends getting shot dead. So when I walked in the door and my children didn't even hug me, my heart completely broke. They didn't even look up from their iPads when they said hello. It was as if Temple Run was more important than their dad coming home. That's when I heard a creaking down the stairs. It was my in-laws. They hugged me tightly. "We've been waiting for this moment for so long," they said. This warmed my heart, and I hugged them back. Then my wife popped out of nowhere and lightly hugged me too. That's when I tensed up because as I glanced around the room, I noticed it had been filled with empty moving boxes and suitcases. I guess they noticed me staring because that's when they broke the news. "Maria, my wife, was struggling to take care of everything while you abandoned your family," my mother-in-law said. She said the word abandon like it was a joke, but it felt real. I froze in my tracks because Maria and I had countless conversations before I left for the war. She was the one who convinced me that it was a good idea to go. Well, other ex-soldiers had already warned me that things would seem off in the first week of returning. So I shoved my pain away and told myself it was only a matter of time before things went back to normal. That night for dinner, I cooked my famous roast chicken, the one with homemade rosemary, garlic butter, and creamy mashed potatoes. Before I left, my kids would practically beg for me to cook this every day. But now, nothing. Not even a thanks, Dad. We were eating in silence when my youngest son, 5-year-old Lucas, dropped his plate on the floor. Suddenly, my system raced into action. I quickly stood up and ducked under the table, whispering a countdown from 5 like I had done in the war. But when I got to 1, nothing happened. That's when I realized I was back home. I took a deep breath and sat back down. Instead of my wife comforting me, she stared at me with horror. Her mother was typing something furiously on her phone. I had no idea they had been filming me the whole time. Emma, my daughter, and Lucas were whisked away before I could even apologize to them. The next few months were brutal. My wife was as distant as ever, and my kids refused to do anything with me. The only thing there for me was my PTSD symptoms. One day I woke up to a knock at the door. It was a caseworker. "Mr. Hanley, I'm from Child Protective Services. We've received concerning reports about erratic behavior around your children," she said. She then showed me something that still makes my skin crawl. Right there on her phone was a video compilation of my PTSD flashbacks, completely taken out of context. I had been framed to look unpredictable and show evidence of violence. I gripped the doorframe to stop myself from collapsing. That's when my wife appeared behind me. I thought she was going to defend me, but no. "I think it's best if you stay somewhere else for a while for the children's safety," she said. Her parents flanked her like bodyguards, my mother-in-law still filming on her phone. I knew if I didn't leave right then and there, it would provide more evidence of being a bad father. So, I left my own home with nothing but a trash bag of my dirty clothes and a phone charger. I had only kept 20% of what I earned from being a soldier, with the rest going to my family, but there were only $35 sitting in my bank account. I texted Maria, and she responded instantly. "Investment opportunities. Your parents needed it more than we did." I stared at my phone, tears blurring my vision. My days became filled with depression naps in my truck, showering at the gym, and eating free food from the local church. I was sitting in a Taco Bell when I saw Jake. We'd served together, survived an ambush together. Now he's a lawyer. "Brother, what the hell happened to you?" he asked. When I told him everything, his jaw clenched. "Those videos, were they recording you without consent?" When I nodded, he smirked. "You know that's illegal in this state." For the first time since I was deployed, I smiled back. Jake worked for free, fueled by pure rage. After just a day, he found something that changed everything. I deleted a folder on my iPad, one that was still connected to Maria's iCloud account. What I saw made my stomach churn. Video after video showed Maria coaching the kids, training them to ignore me when I was around. "Remember, if anyone asks, you don't feel safe with Daddy?" she said casually, as if she was talking about the weather. In the background of all the videos was a man I recognized instantly, her CrossFit gym friend, the one I had always seen checking her out, now rubbing her shoulders while she taught our children to lie about me. That's when I knew I needed full custody. I scrolled through the folder with shaking hands. There were over 200 videos, each one dated and organized by month. The earliest one started 6 months ago, right around when Maria had started acting strange. I clicked on one from 3 months back. Emma sat on Maria's lap while Brad leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed. "What do you say when the judge asks about Daddy?" Maria asked sweetly. "That he scares me," Emma recited, her voice flat and rehearsed. "Good girl," Maria said. "And what else?" "That he yells really loud and throws things." Brad stepped forward, ruffling Emma's hair. "Maybe add that you cry when you see him. Judges eat that stuff up." My hands trembled so badly I nearly dropped the iPad. Jake grabbed it from me, his face darkening as he watched. We sat in that Taco Bell booth for 3 hours, going through video after video. Each one showed Maria drilling the kids on what to say, how to act, what lies to tell. Brad appeared in most of them, always offering suggestions, always touching Maria's shoulder or playing with her hair. "We need to file for emergency custody immediately," Jake said, already pulling out his laptop. "This is textbook parental alienation." But when we filed the motion the next morning, things didn't go as planned. Maria's parents had hired Robbie Patterson, one of the most expensive family lawyers in the state. He showed up to the courthouse in a suit that probably cost more than my truck. "Your Honor," Patterson said smoothly, Given Mr. Hanley's documented PTSD and the concerning videos my client has provided, we request a full psychological evaluation before any custody modifications are considered. The judge nodded. That seems reasonable. We'll schedule the hearing for 8 weeks from now, pending Dr. Leo's evaluation. 8 weeks? My kids would spend another 2 months being poisoned against me. Jake objected, arguing the coaching video showed immediate harm, but Patterson dismissed them as taken out of context without even viewing them. Dr. Leo's office smelled like expensive leather and old books. He had certificates covering every wall and a golf trophy on his desk. As he asked me questions about my deployment, my childhood, my marriage, I tried to stay calm and measured. Then I noticed a photo on his bookshelf, Dr. Leo in tennis whites standing next to Carol at what looked like a country club event. You know my mother-in-law? I asked carefully. He glanced at the photo and smiled. Oh yes, Carol and I play doubles every Sunday. Wonderful woman. My stomach dropped, but I kept my face neutral. Any complaint would make me look paranoid, so I answered his questions, knowing this evaluation was probably already decided. The supervised visits started 2 weeks later. I was allowed to see Emma and Lucas for 2 hours every Saturday in a sterile visitation center. Maria would drop them off, always making a show of hugging them extra tight. Remember, she'd whisper loud enough for me to hear, if Daddy tries to take you away forever, just scream for help. Lucas would start crying before she even left. I don't want Daddy to take me away, I want to stay with Mommy, he'd say. The supervisor would write notes while I tried to calm my sobbing 5-year-old, explaining I wasn't taking anyone anywhere. But the damage was done. Every visit started with tears and ended with the kids asking when they could go home. I noticed changes in Emma. Designer clothes I'd never seen before. A gold bracelet that looked real. A new iPhone when she'd had a basic phone before. When I asked where they came from, she just shrugged. Brad buys me stuff. That's nice of him, I said through gritted teeth. Does Brad live with you now? Sometimes. He and Mommy share a room. Jake tried to get the kids' school records, medical files, anything that might show the impact of what was happening. But every request hit a wall. The school needed both parents' consent. The doctor's office had misplaced the files. Even their teacher, Mrs. Bell, who'd always been friendly, now avoided eye contact when I waited outside school. Then Jake's investigator found something that made my stomach turn, and my hands sweat, as if I were back on the battlefield, a bank account number. It wasn't mine. It wasn't Maria's either. It was an account linked to Brad's name. To my bitter surprise, there were dozens of monthly deposits listed there, each one coming directly from the card Maria used for family investments. My money. Soldiers' money. Hard-earned money. The fruit of sleepless nights surrounded by explosions, screams, death, and pain. Was Brad being paid to help destroy my image? To replace my father figure? To be there when I couldn't, but with my money? Jake looked at me as if he were seeing a powder keg about to explode. And he was right. The next day, I went to the bank, requested complete statements, and also asked for a fiscal survey. I found absurd receipts, private yoga classes for the emotional well-being of the children, dinners at expensive restaurants paid with my secondary card, which Maria never mentioned. I even discovered the purchase of a men's wedding ring made in my name, delivered to Brad's address. They weren't just erasing me from the children's lives. They were building a new family with the pieces they took from me. I returned to the old little hotel room where I was living and looked at my suitcase with 3 pants, 2 t-shirts, and a pair of boots I used in Afghanistan. And I cried. I cried like a man who had lost everything. But when I finished crying, I got up and I swore it wouldn't end like this. The following week, I went back to see Jake. He helped me gather everything. Bank statements, iCloud screenshots, manipulation videos, financial transaction records, even messages between Maria and Brad. The cherry on top was a message from her to him saying, after the hearing, everything will be ours for good. Ours, not the children's. Ours. That was greed, betrayal, and cruelty combined. It gave me exactly what I needed, ammunition. Jake introduced me to a local investigative journalist who loved a good story about injustice against war veterans. At first, I hesitated. I didn't want to expose my children, but then I thought they were already being used as shields. I just wanted the truth to come out. It wasn't revenge, it was justice. The article came out 2 weeks later, a front-page headline in the local newspaper, War Hero or Threat. The real story behind a father's battle for his children. There it all was, my name, my military record, the video manipulation, parental alienation, suspicious spending with family money. I didn't use the children's names, nor Maria's, but it was enough. The next day, my mother-in-law was seen pushing a journalist away from her house, screaming that everything was a lie. Brad was fired from his trainer position at the gym after the community mothers saw who he really was. And Maria, well, she had to give explanations, many explanations. But what really gave me strength was when, that same week, I received a call from the school principal. She had read the article, she reevaluated the blockade I suffered regarding my children's school information, and based on the report, decided to cooperate with the investigations. That's where everything began to change. The school report showed what I already feared. Declining performance, episodes of aggression, insomnia, and even a drawing by Lucas with a crying doll in a corner and another with an angry face screaming lies. The crying doll wore my military uniform. I took a deep breath. I wasn't going to back down. This was just the beginning. The next day, I filed a new legal petition, not just for full custody, but also for holding Maria accountable for parental alienation, misuse of resources, and emotional exposure of the children. Jake handled every line of the document as if he were writing a war letter. This time, there was no way they could ignore the facts. The media was paying attention, the judge was different, and Dr. Leo, who curiously had declared himself unfit to continue for ethical reasons, was replaced by an independent forensic psychologist appointed by the court. It was the first victory, a small victory, but it was enough to rekindle something inside me. The psychologist, Dr. Naomi Vasquez, requested sessions with everyone involved, including the children. The first conversations were tense. Lucas cowered in the corner of the room, afraid even to look me in the eyes. Emma, older, looked at me as if I were a stranger, a threat, but Dr. Naomi was intelligent, sensitive, and patient. Gradually, she dismantled piece by piece the theater that had been set up over the past months. One day, during a session with Emma, she asked, "How do you feel when you see Daddy?" Emma bit her lip. "I feel afraid." "Why?" "Because Mommy said..." She froze. In that instant, I saw my daughter's internal struggle, the doubt, the confusion, the seed of truth trying to sprout despite the roots of fear. In the next session, the doctor used a drawing technique with Lucas. She asked him to draw his house. There it was, a male figure outside the house with a backpack and tears in his eyes, while a woman smiled in the window with a tall man beside her. "Who are they?" she asked. "It's Daddy. Mommy said he couldn't live with us anymore. And the other man? It's Brad. He lives in Mommy's room now." That same week, while waiting for my turn in the waiting room, I heard Dr. Vasquez talking to her assistant. "These are the worst cases of child manipulation I've ever seen." The girl repeats phrases like a script. The boy shows clear signs of chronic anxiety. And the father just wants the children to know the truth. He's not seeking revenge, he wants presence, the bond. My throat tightened. I was tired, exhausted, but hearing that, I felt that maybe, finally, someone was seeing who I really was. Meanwhile, Maria seemed desperate to maintain appearances. Her parents no longer spoke to the press. Brad had deleted all social media and stopped appearing publicly with her. She tried to disqualify Dr. Vasquez's work but was ignored. In a last effort, she filed a petition alleging emotional retaliation from the ex-husband. Jake laughed. "That just shows desperation. They're losing control of the narrative." And they really were. A few weeks later, the review hearing arrived. It was the chance to reverse everything. In the courtroom, I saw Maria sitting next to the expensive lawyer with an expression of false serenity. Brad wasn't there, supposedly traveling for work, although we all knew he had fled the scandal. Emma and Lucas were in another room, waiting for the moment to give testimony if the judge deemed it necessary. This time, all the evidence was on the table. The videos, bank statements, psychological reports. Dr. Vasquez was heard via video conference and was clear. There are very strong indications of parental alienation by the mother and current partner. The children were induced to lie and manifest psychological symptoms consistent with ongoing emotional trauma. I recommend immediate temporary custody for the father with psychological monitoring of the minors. Maria's eyes widened. For the first time, her facade cracked. The judge took a deep breath and then said, "This court does not tolerate any form of emotional manipulation of minors. Given the evidence, I grant provisional custody to Mr. Hanley. Mrs. Maria will have the right to supervised visits once a week. This case will be re-evaluated in 6 months." Maria tried to protest but was restrained. Her parents left the room without looking at her. And me? I trembled not from fear but from relief. Leaving the courthouse, I looked at the reporters in the distance. I didn't say anything. I just held Lucas's stuffed animal, which he had dropped during the last visit, and moved forward with a broken heart but determined. The war wasn't over yet, but for the first time, I was winning. When I returned home with provisional custody of the children, my heart beat as if I were carrying glass on thin paper. I knew the hardest part was still to come. Having custody was one thing, rebuilding the destroyed trust was another. They were hurt, confused, reprogrammed to fear me. I needed to relearn how to be a father, but mainly, I needed to give them the freedom to relearn who I was. The first day was silent. Lucas looked at me as if I were a stranger who could disappear at any moment. Emma didn't say a word, just stayed locked in her room with headphones on. I cooked as always, roasted, chicken with rosemary and garlic, but no one wanted to eat. That night, I slept on the couch. I didn't want them to feel pressured. I just wanted to be nearby in case they needed me. Around 2 in the morning, I heard timid footsteps. It was Lucas with the stuffed animal I had recovered from the floor during the last visit. "Dad, can I sleep here?" His voice came out weak, hesitant, as if he were breaking an invisible rule. I extended my arm, made space under the blanket. He lay down beside me, resting his head on my chest. I remained motionless, afraid that any movement would scare him, until I heard a whisper. "Mommy said you yell, but you don't yell." My heart tightened. "Sometimes people say things that aren't true," I replied softly. He just squeezed my hand and slept. That dawn, I cried silently. But it was different. It wasn't despair. It was hope. The following days were an emotional battle. Emma still resisted. She ignored my attempts, avoided any contact until one day she forgot her unlocked phone on the table. A message blinked on the screen. It was from Maria. "Don't let yourself be fooled. He's just pretending. Remember what we agreed? Stay strong for me. I love you." My teeth clenched. But instead of confronting Emma, I took the message directly to the new therapist assigned by the court. She said it was crucial not to break Emma's trust now, but that contact with the mother needed to be limited immediately. We filed an urgent contact blocking request. The judge complied, and Maria had a breakdown. At the end of the week, she appeared screaming from across the street from the school, yelling that I was stealing her children. She was taken away by police. A police report was filed. Supervised visits were suspended. The next day, Emma came to talk to me. It was the first time she looked me in the eyes in weeks. "Is she okay?" she asked. Your mother will be fine, I replied. But now we need to take care of you and Lucas. Of us? She stayed silent, then said, Can I show you something? We went up to her room. From the back of the closet, she pulled out a shoebox. Inside were clippings, letters I had sent from Afghanistan, drawings of us, even a note from when she lost her tooth, and I left a coin under the pillow with a little note. The tooth fairy is on vacation, so Daddy left this instead. She held those things in her hands for a while, then looked at me and whispered, I knew it was a lie, but I wanted so much to believe her because if it were true, it would mean you loved me less than you loved the army. I knelt in front of her. I went to protect you, but I was wrong to have gone. I should have chosen you. She fell into my embrace and we cried together. From then on, things began to change slowly, but they changed. Lucas started playing with me again. He asked me to build a fort with sheets in the middle of the living room. Emma began telling me about school. I picked them up every day and brought a snack that I prepared myself. I started having dreams without explosions, without gunfire, just the sound of laughter in the backseat of the car. Meanwhile, Maria disappeared from social media. Brad was seen at a local bar being kicked out by an angry father who had read the report. Maria's mother filed a request to visit the grandchildren but was denied. She tried in vain to intimidate me with looks in front of the school. Jake remained firm by my side, and now he was preparing the new lawsuit, a request for definitive custody, reverse alimony for proven parental alienation, compensation for defamation, and a notification for Maria to answer for false testimony in court. In the last consultation with Dr. Vasquez, she told me something I'll never forget. Your children don't need a hero. They just need their father, and now they have him. As we left the clinic, Emma took my hand. Lucas ran to the car, imitating an airplane. For a moment, the world seemed right again. But I knew the final trial was still to come and I would be ready. The following 2 months were of intense preparation, not just for the definitive hearing but to maintain the children's emotional stability. It was like being in constant vigil, like in war. Only now the battlefield was domestic routine, school, therapy, reconstruction. Emma and Lucas were lighter. They began to smile, to play, to talk without fear. But a memory of their mother was enough for tension to return. Sometimes Emma would wake up in the middle of the night, screaming that Brad was taking Lucas away. I would run to her room, sit beside her, and hold her hand until she went back to sleep. I hated that my children had known the world of lies so early, that their childhood had been used as emotional currency by a woman I once thought I loved. But now I understood what it was to truly love. To love was not to give up. To love was to stay, even hurt, even tired, even wronged. Jake helped me put together a dossier with everything. Maria's messages, the videos, therapy records, police reports, school grades before and after my return, and even receipts for psychological care that I myself had been receiving since returning from Afghanistan. Everything was there, organized, chronological, irrefutable. It's going to be a massacre, said Jake with a cold tone. And you're going to come out of this with a clean soul. The hearing was scheduled for a rainy Wednesday. The courthouse was fuller than usual. The press was still following the case, and for the first time in months, Maria appeared without the shine in her eyes. She was dejected, with dark circles, no makeup. Beside her was a new lawyer, cheaper, without the expensive suit, visibly uncomfortable with the media presence. I arrived with Jake and the documents. Emma and Lucas stayed with the social worker outside the building. Dr. Vasquez was there. The judge was also the same one from the provisional decision. When the clock struck 9 sharp, she began the session. This is the hearing for custody definition and analysis of accusations of parental alienation, defamation, and misuse of family funds. Maria tried to open her mouth right at the beginning, but the judge interrupted her. The lady will have her opportunity, but first I want to hear the specialists. Dr. Vasquez stood up with a firm but serene voice. She described the effects of manipulation on the children. She brought drawings, session recordings, striking phrases like, Daddy is Mommy's monster, and Mommy said you're going to disappear like in the war. This child, Lucas, 5 years old, reported fear of sleeping because he thought his father could be killed in the room while he slept. He associated this with war. The most serious thing, he associated this with the mother's presence with the new partner. He said that Brad said that men like his father were weak and had broken soldier heads. Silence. The judge was taking notes. Maria's lawyer shook his head, uncomfortable. Maria kept her eyes down. Then came the bank statements, the transfers to Brad, the purchases made with my money, the dinners paid with my card, the iCloud message screenshots, the videos, the recordings. Each piece of evidence was a shot back against everything they had done to me. Her lawyer tried to disqualify the videos. They're montages, loose excerpts. They don't represent the whole, he said. Jake stood up calmly and retorted, Perfect, Your Honor. We have all the original videos with metadata, locations, and dates, more than 200 files, all in sequence, with children being trained to lie, with Mr. Brad encouraging lies in exchange for gifts. We even have a video where Maria laughs while Lucas asks if Daddy is going to die soon so he won't have to lie anymore. The impact was immediate. The judge asked for silence, asked for a break, and when she returned, she looked at Maria like a teacher who had finally seen what the student had been hiding for months. Mrs. Maria, do you wish to make any statement? Maria stood up. For the first time in a long time, her eyes were teary. I was overwhelmed. I felt abandoned. And when Brad appeared, I just wanted help. I was wrong, but he also manipulated me. I never wanted to hurt the children. The judge remained silent for long seconds, then said, This hearing is not about what you felt, it's about what you did. Then came the sentence: legal and physical custody of the children will be definitively granted to the father, Mr. Hanley. The mother may request supervised visits once a month upon favorable psychological report. The accusations of parental alienation and misuse of funds will be forwarded to the Public Prosecutor's Office for Criminal Investigation. This court closes this session with the certainty that the children will finally have peace. There was no celebration, just silence. Maria left the room as if floating. She didn't look me in the eyes, didn't even try to talk to me. It was as if everything had ended there. But for me, something was beginning. I returned to the car, took a deep breath, and called the school. I wanted them to know that the parents were now just one, and that father was present. That night, Emma helped me prepare dinner. Lucas put the napkin on his lap and said, "Thank you, Dad," before eating. And I cried again, but this time it was happiness. Happiness, even after so much time in darkness, is like a sunrise in slow motion. You almost don't believe it until you're completely enveloped by the light. For the first time in almost 2 years, I felt peace. Not that noisy peace with victory shouts and celebrations, but the silent peace of seeing my children sleeping peacefully with relaxed bodies, without fear, without nightmares. The peace of seeing school drawings stuck on the refrigerator, of hearing "Daddy, help me" instead of "I want to leave." The following weeks were of reconstruction and also vigilance. Although custody was already mine, I knew Maria wouldn't give up so easily. She was driven by control, and people like that, when they lose dominion, become even more dangerous. Brad had disappeared from the map. Some said he moved to another state. Others swore he was living with his parents, hiding in shame. And Maria, well, she tried to appeal the decision, but there were no loopholes. The court was clear: she would need to present favorable psychological reports. Until that moment, she hadn't even shown up for the first session. But like every story involving wounded pride, the final blow didn't take long to come. It was on a Tuesday morning. I had dropped Lucas off at school and was returning to pick up Emma, who had a medical appointment. The school principal discreetly called me to talk. "Mr. Hanley, we feel you need to know. Yesterday, a woman presented herself at the gate saying she was Emma's mother. She tried to take your daughter from school. She said you had authorized it by phone." My heart raced. Did she manage to take Emma? No. Thank God, no. The employee was suspicious of how she was dressed, nervous, and called the coordination directly. "We have cameras and we've already passed everything to the police. The lady left before we could contain her." I froze. Maria had tried to kidnap her own daughter. I ran to the school, hugged Emma so tight she almost lost her breath. Then I called Jake, who filed an emergency restraining petition. Within 24 hours, Maria was prohibited from approaching any place frequented by me or the children. Now she couldn't even send letters, messages, or communications. But what destroyed me again was what Emma told me that night while combing her hair in front of the mirror. She wanted to take me to live with Brad. She said there I could use TikTok without anyone bothering me. She said you were too old to take care of us. My blood boiled, but I swallowed hard. "And what did you answer?" She looked at me through the mirror, her eyes teary but firm. "That she lost me the day she taught me to be afraid of you." My world stopped for a second. Emma had finally understood. Lucas already saw me as a hero again. Now it was Emma's turn. That night, for the first time since I returned from Afghanistan, both of them lay in bed with me to watch a movie. There were no screams. There was no war, just blankets, popcorn, and shy smiles. Gradually, we were becoming a family again. It was in this moment of reconstruction that an idea lit up inside me. I didn't want other fathers to go through what I went through. I decided to look for the journalist who had done the first article and told him everything. The part about the videos, the manipulation, the kidnapping attempt. He listened to everything in silence and at the end said, "This needs to be told, but not as another scandal, as a warning." A new project was born there. Together, we produced a documentary series called End Father, Soldier, and Survivor, telling the story with evidence. Testimonies from Dr. Vasquez, from Jake, even from the school principal, without sensationalism, just the truth. The first episode aired 3 weeks later. It went viral. Thousands of comments, fathers who identified, mothers who asked for forgiveness for similar attitudes, specialists debating the impact of parental alienation. The story stopped being just mine. With that, Maria lost any chance of cleaning up her image. Her parents kicked her out of the house. The attempt at reconciliation with Brad failed, and she was fired from her job. The last news I received was that she was living in a rented room in the back of a distant house, working at a restaurant at night, unable to talk to her children. Many would say it was karma, but for me, it was justice. At the end of that month, while putting Lucas to sleep, he hugged me and said, "Daddy, when I grow up, I want to be like you." I looked at him, moved. Why? Because you're brave, but you also know how to give affection. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of his bed, watching his serene, protected face. I had gone through hells that not even the worst combats had prepared me for. But I survived, and more than that, I won. Not in the way people imagine. Not with trophies, medals, or glory headlines. My victory was silent. It was waking up with my children calling me for breakfast. It was hearing laughter that didn't come loaded with pain. It was stopping sleeping with one eye open and my soul armed. It was allowing myself to breathe. Months passed since the trial. Since Maria's failed attempt to take my daughter by force. Since I went from monster to father. From marginalized to protagonist of my own story. Now our routine was simple, serene, full of small conquests that maybe no one else would notice. But that for me were miracles. Lucas now slept in his own room without needing the light on. Emma called me to help her with homework. Both laughed when I burned the toast or got the cartoon name wrong. Our weekends were ours, with bicycles in the park, movie sessions, and long walks where we talked about everything and nothing at the same time. But inside me, there was still something unresolved, an uneasiness, a remnant of trauma that not even victories could erase. It wasn't guilt. It was the weight of silence, because even after everything, Maria was still out there, quietly defeated perhaps, but still breathing the same anger. That prevented me from lowering my guard. One day, I received a handwritten letter. I recognized the handwriting immediately, Maria. I opened it with my stomach churning. It was short, and curiously, without apologies. You won. You always wanted to win. I hope you're happy now. I lost everything. Nothing about the children. Nothing about what she did. Nothing that showed remorse. It was just more proof. She didn't want forgiveness. She wanted control, and she lost control. That, for her, was hell. I didn't respond. I burned the letter in the backyard like someone burning a last memory before moving on. Therapy continued, not just for the children, for me too. Dr. Vasquez accompanied me in this process. It was she who once told me, "You don't need to wait for the apology that will never come. You don't need that permission to be happy. Justice has already been done." And she was right. I started giving lectures at schools and community centers. I talked about trauma, parental alienation, and family reconstruction. It wasn't about turning pain into a show. It was about taking something rotten and making something worthwhile sprout. A father who had been publicly destroyed, but who didn't allow that to define his existence. One day, I was called to speak at an event for veterans. There were other men like me, some with visible scars, others with hidden wounds that no one dared to touch. I spoke for almost an hour. At the end, one of them, a gentleman with gray hair and calloused hands, hugged me and said, "You didn't just survive the war, son. You won the one nobody wants to fight, the one of the soul." That night, when I returned home, I found Emma and Lucas in the kitchen preparing a cake. The mess was absurd. Flour, even on the ceiling. But the happiness stamped on their faces was something no metal in the world could give me. I sat on the floor with them, laughing, tasting the raw cake, helping with the mess. On the living room wall, a new frame now hung. It wasn't a military decoration, not a judicial certificate. It was a drawing made by Lucas, the three of us holding hands with the caption, "My Real Family." And it was there that I understood. The war was over, and against all odds, I had come home. So I fought for custody, exposed every lie, and rebuilt my kids' trust. Now tell me, am I really the asshole for refusing to forgive their mother?